Alright everyone, we are back with our NPL Miners Power Rankings. We apologize that these videos are probably going to be a bit longer. We're still kind of getting used to this, getting used to playing off each other and talking about the teams and all of that, so hopefully in subsequent weeks it'll be a little bit shorter with the videos, but for now we're just gonna kind of set the stage and get everything all ironed out. So as we left off, we had talked about our bottom 6 teams, some of which overlapped with our top 6. Speaking of number 6, we've already covered the Brisbane that's kind of a tongue twister. The Brisbane Breelooms and the Virginia Tech Frokies in our previous segment, so go watch that. We've also covered my number 5, which is North Carolina.
So we will be starting off with my number 5 and his number 4, the Detroit Pincers, coached by Ashley. The first thing I notice when I look at this team is very scary. Mega Charizard X hits very hard. So does Emboar. She has 2 of the strongest hidden fire types in the league. She also has, in my opinion, the best electric type, which is Raikou. I think Raikou and Thunder's Eye are up there. They're very close, but I think Raikou has the small edge just because it's a little bit faster and it's a little bit bulkier, and it's mono electric, which is always nice. Latios is Latios might be the most reliable defogger out there. It has a combination of bulk and firepower. It's kind of like if you mixed Mandibuzz and Latios together. That's what would come out. Latios. It can fire off some powerful Dracos, it can defog, it can roost, it can run a Calm Mind Store power set, not nearly as scary as the banned Mega Latios, but regular Latios can still run a scary Calm Mind Store power set. She also has Tangrowth and Alomola, which forms a very good regen core, and she also has Donphan as a spinner, so she actually does have very good hazard removal, which is great for Charizard, so props to her on that. She does have some revenge killers like Ditto, which has not seen very much use at all, except for Geo. I think he has it this season. He had it last season in the GBA, so that's pretty much the only time I've ever seen Ditto in the format. So I think it can do pretty well, but we'll see. It basically depends on what the other team is, literally. Lantern is another good electric type, as well as a good bulky water type. It also gets Heal Bell, so she does have Heal Bell support. And then she does have Braviary, which is another decent revenge killer. It also gives her another decent defogger, so she really has 2 reliable hazard removers and a decent hazard removal too. So she's pretty set, and then she has Doublade, which is a nice spin blocker, and as well as a very nice steel type. So she does have she doesn't have a Fairy Dragon steel core, but she does have very nice Fire Water Grass core, and she does have a lot of bulk as well as a lot of offense. So she's very well mixed team. However, I will notice that her team is not it's pretty slow outside of Latios and Raikou. The next closest thing is Charizard X, and then after that it drastically drops.
What about Braviary?
Braviary is base 80. That's not very fast. I guess Ditto can technically be any speed, so if you want to cheat and say Ditto can be fast, then okay. Props to you for being right. but she doesn't really have anything in the middle. She has 2 fast things, a decent middle and speed, one in Charizard X, and then after that it's pretty slow. But that's really the only problem. She has a very complete team. I know that I said I would not involve my personal feelings on the coach. I love Ashley, don't worry. It's not like I hate her, but I just can't get past the fact, I know she had an excuse for how bad she did last season, but I just need to see something out of her. This is the only ranking I have where I'm kind of biased in terms of the person. If she can prove that she can, if she has the time she can do it, I will put her up higher. But like, even though her team might be one of the most complete teams there are, there's just a wall for me. I can't put her past here. This is the highest I could put her, no matter how good her team was. I'm sorry, Ashley, but this was just how high I could put her. My first 4 teams were all just like they had better teams, but like, you know, no matter what, like, this was as high as I could put her, is basically what I'm trying to say. She does have a very good team though, so she can definitely climb the ladder if she does good.
All right, so I actually have Ashley 1 rank higher. My wall in this case, which really wasn't a wall, because then if it was a wall, she'd be at like number 13 or something. But I do have a slight animosity towards her fascination with spiders. I'm an arachnophobe, and she has a collection of tarantulas, but I did not let this stand in the way of her draft impressing the hell out of me. She actually has a very, very versatile fire, water, grass core. She actually has 2 fire types, 2 water types, and a grass type. So it's essentially like she has 2 fire, water, grass cores hinging on Tangrowth, which basically counts as two grass types because it's so amazing. Santa Christ, as it is known. She has a very scary regenerator core going on with Tangrowth and Alamomola. Lantern, it basically has 2 immunities, not at the same time, but you basically are not sure of which one is going to use at any one time, because it does have Volt Absorb and Water Absorb. It functions as another pivot. It does have access to Heal Bell, so she can use it as a cleric. I'm not sure how much we're going to see it in conjunction with Raikou, which will probably be her main electric type, her main Volt Switcher and Momentum Gainer. But she does have a Latias, which is, like Trev was saying earlier, very reliable defogger, also very versatile mon. I really love her Donphan. Donphan is an amazing Pokemon. I used it in my Season 3 team. I didn't pick it up in Season 4. I chose Mamoswine over Donphan. But I do love Donphan. It's a great rapid spinner. It's an offensive tank, really, and it's really good at what it does, so props to that. She does have a lot of revenge killers. Not a lot of revenge killers, but she does have a lot of fright for her revenge killers. Those being, you know, potentially Scarf Ditto to come in on an offensive threat and use it against the other person's team. Scarfed Braviary as well can put in a lot of work. Super strong Brave Birds and returns. Then there's just Emboar and Mega Charizard, super scary fire types, just gonna run through teams. However, she does have to be careful about what she does with them. Trev was talking about how last season she kind of let the ball drop with her team building and planning and playing. Really, with this team, what she's going to have to do is she's going to have to use her cores to break things down. She's going to have to use her regen core to kind of absorb all the damage while at the same time wearing down her opponent with her Volt Switchers, her Momentum Gainers, keeping hazards off her side of the field with Latias and Donphan, and then revenge killing whatever she can whenever it gets worn down enough with Braviary and Ditto, all to pave the way for either Emboar or Charizard, or both, depending on the matchup, to basically sweep. She can't play these risky. She tried to set up very early, multiple times last season with her Mega Charizard X, which she did have in the Majors League in Season 3, which I guess was just the NPL League, because we didn't have a Minors League in Season 3, but she didn't really play it the best. If she wants to make it successful in this league, she's going to have to definitely play the slow game, play the wearing down of the other team's Pokemon, and then set up with it at the end, or close to the end, and then just sweep through and clean up. That's really how I think she's going to find success with this team. In terms of her weaknesses on the team, she does have 5 ground weaknesses: Raikou, Doublade, Emboar, Lantern, and Mega Charizard X after it Mega Evolves, although she does have an immunity to ground before she Mega Evolves. However, she cannot keep it as an unmega evolved Charizard if she is going for an attack, so really it's only a switch into ground types if she wants to use it unevolved. But To her credit, she does have a resist in Tangrowth, and she does have 2 immunities in Braviary and Latias, and like I said, Charizard before it Mega Evolves. But if she's careful with ground types, and she is careful about wearing down the opponent's team, I feel like Charizard can put big dents in the opposing team, so that's why I have her ranked at number 4. Interestingly enough, Trev at number 4 has San Francisco, which is the team that I said. There was just something a little bit off, but Trev is going to now explain why he has them at number 4.
Well, first, I look at this team, and I'm like, wow, their offense is nearly unmatched in this league. I mean, with threats like Mega Lop, Hoopa Unbound, and Darmanitan. Like, those are... Lop is more of a speedy hitter, but it can still hit hard. But then Hoopa U and Darm together break the entire league. If there's anything that Hoopa possibly can't hit, then Darm can just come in and hit that. Like they together they hit pretty much everything in the league very, very hard. Their defensive core has potential, but it's not really proven. Milotic is pretty proven in the format. It's one of the best bulky waters there are, although there are a ton of bulky waters to compete with, so that's a pretty good feat for itself. Aromatisse is rather unproven. Rhyperior can be loose defensively, but I like to think of it more as a tank because it's just so bulky, and plus its spit up is very, very bad. Even with Solid Rock, it still dies to a lot of grass and water type attacks. Gourgeist, like Richard said earlier, very interesting. You can either have a speedy but kind of not as bulky because I think it loses out on HP grass type, or you can have a very bulky grass type. It reminds me a lot of Chestnut in the fact that it's very fizz def. Well, at least the extra large form does, in the fact that it's very fizz def, but not the fastest and not that great on the special defensive and special attack side, although it does get Fire Blast, which is neat. Mighty Anna is kind of like a worse copy of Skuntank. Skuntank is better in every single way. It gets defog, it has poison jab, and he has it on his own team, so I think he really should have picked up something else because Skuntank is a better sucker puncher. Mighty Anna might be a better sweeper, but like he has other sweepers to deal with that. And then he actually does have he doesn't really need has removal that much, but it is nice to have Zapdos as the defogger because it's pretty reliable, as well as he has Skuntank. So he actually has two pretty good defoggers. Zapdos being a very good upper tier defogger, where Skuntank is a very good lower tier. But yeah, the reason I have them at 4 is just like they have so much. Their defensive core is unproven mostly, but has so much potential, and then their offense is basically unmatched. There is like a match or two in the league, but that's about it.
I do like his team. It's just there's something missing for me, but he does have a very scary team, as you've said. Moving on to number 3, though, and this is the only rank that we actually have a match for. We both, at number 3, have Andrew, the coach of the Miami Heatrans. So, I guess I'll start off, and just looking at his team, it is extremely synergetic, and he has a lot of big threats. He actually has your MVP and my mascot, Kyurem B and Roserade, so those are automatic brownie points, of course. But in all seriousness, other than that, like his Fire Water Grass core it's very, very just it's good. It's Rotom H, Roserade, and Empoleon. I feel like those are really nice for a Fire Water Grass core. I mean, Roserade is just amazing because it's, my mascot, but in all seriousness, it does have a lot of attacks. It has a very versatile move pool. It can set up and be a sweeper. It can run an Assault Vest. It can be bulky and lay Toxic Spikes and do all that kind of hazard stacking shenanigans. Empoleon gets access to Defog. Rotom H also functions as an electric pivot. So his Fire Water Grass core is pretty solid. He also does have a Virizion down as one of his last picks. Virizion, I think, is relatively unproven, at least in the NPL. And so I'm interested to see what he does with it. He does have also a very, very scary Dragonsteel Fairy core, in the sense that Kyurem B is a beast. It's just literally, I can't even describe it. In the hands of a good player like Trev, the Season 3 champion here, it can run through teams. And his steel types, Skarmory and Empoleon. I mean, Skarmory is fantastic. Empoleon is, I've already covered that. And Slurpuff is his fairy. Slurpuff, it's okay. I mean, it has different things it can do. It can be a special attacker. It can be a physical monster with belly drum. It can be defensive. I think it can run like a calm mindset as well. He does have Sneasel also for a bit of a fast Dark Ice coverage there, and I mean overall his team is really great. Mismagius, a fast Ghost type spin blocker. The only thing I really kind of have a problem with is his Claydol is not the best spinner. In lower tiers in Smogon play, it is a very good mon, but in League format it tends not to do so well. So we'll have to see if he makes use of that. He does have the very scary Mega Medicham. It's kind of like he took bits and pieces of everyone's team that he liked in Season 3 in the NPL and basically put it onto his team, which is pretty cool. So he did get sniped a lot and still actually managed to make a very good draft out of it. I was very impressed with it. I was helping him through part of his draft. I promise you that did not have any impact on my ranking of him. In fact, I was like, maybe I should put him lower just so people, don't think that it had an impact, but then that would have been having an impact. So on his own, he achieved rank 3 on my power rankings, on Trev's power rankings as well. Very strong draft. If I had to say that there's a fault besides Claydol, is that he is slightly fighting weak. He is somewhat lacking in momentum, which he may or may not really need to flourish. Like I said, he does have Rotom H, but that's really about it unless something randomly gets U-turn or baton pass. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Would you like to continue on, Trev?
I would just like to say that I previously mentioned that Boo of the 49 Tails had one of the best offensives there is in the league in the form of Hoopa Unbound, Darm, and Mega Lop. Well, this team is the one that matches it. Mega Medicham and Kyurem Black alone probably matches it, and then you add like pieces like Slurpuff as Mismagius, even like Roserade can be offensive, and just his offense is like, not only does he have as scary hard hitters as Boo does, but he also has more of them. His defensive core, as we mentioned, is very good. Skarm, Rotom H, Roserade, Empoleon has a very good potential as a defensive core. He has the ability to. He has 2 spikers, a toxic spiker, and I believe 2 rockers, as well as he has a defogger and a spinner, which Clayball isn't very good, but it is decent for a spinner. It gets the spin off. It doesn't necessarily do anything else very well, but it gets the spin off, which is pretty good. Also, he has Skarmory with defog. He actually has 2 reliable defoggers, and then Claydol, so that's very good. So he protects Kyurem Black well, very support, has a lot of support for Kyurem Black. Also has the possibility of dual screens with Rotom H, which that's a common Rotom H set. Also dual screens with Claydol possibly. Slurpuff, I honestly love Slurpuff. I had it Season 2, it did amazing, and then I dropped it for no apparent reason, but yeah, let's ignore that fact. But Slurpuff is really good. It's very versatile. It has a wide move pool: Flamethrower, Surf, Energy Ball, Drain Punch, Play, Rough. Its physical move pool isn't that versatile, but its special move pool is off the charts. And it even gets things like Aromatherapy, Wish. I believe it gets Wish. Yeah, It gets Drain Kiss, which could be decent for recovery, if you're in a calm mindset. So yeah, I think it's very good. And then he's got Mismages as a spin blocker. He's not the slowest team out there, but they're definitely not the fastest team out there.
Right. Well, it's an impressive draft. Well done, Andrew. And now we move on to our top 2 ranks, the 4 teams that we have here. We've all already covered them in the lower rankings because, like I said, we did have a lot of differences in this draft. So the 2 things that I have really high, Trev actually had pretty low, and the 2 things that he has really high, I had pretty low in the bottom half of our drafts. So I guess we will start off with Trev's defense of his number 2 ranking, Green Bay.
All right, so yes, I did have Green Bay Palkias at number 2, which Richard had at number 7. The reason I have them at number 2 is just because their team is absolutely terrifying. In fact, I would say that if instead of Typhlosion, if they'd gotten like an NU fire type like Pyroar or Magmortar, I would have put them at number 1, honestly. But Typhlosion kind of spoils it, so that's why I put their last pick kind of spoiled it, so I put them at number 2. But Landersai, when it's allowed, is probably a top 5 Pokemon in the format. It's very, very, very scary. You have to prepare for it, and even if you do prepare for it, you could possibly still be swept by it. The scary thing is he has a good offense with like Lando Eye and Mega Gyarados, as well as Exploud can be very powerful. Jolteon can do some damage. Bandit Crobat is nothing to fuck around with. Like, Bandit Crobat can be very scary. I remember using it in Gen 5 a lot. It's not as good now, but it's still very scary. Cobalion can be a scary setup fever, but the real scary thing is he can bring full-blown stall pretty easily. He can bring Cresselia, very bulky, impossible to kill. Vaporeon, impossible to kill. He can bring a bulky Cobalion since he has Vaporeon with Wish and Heal Bell support, as well as Gramble with Heal Bell support. He can keep Cobalion alive for a while. Crobat can be very, very bulky, a very good taunter, very good defogger, which Richard mentioned. Defog is a problem, but like he's not really weak to hazards outside of Typhlosion. Well, at least he's not very weak to rocks. But like he has Vaporeon, and he has Cresselia, which can Lunar Dance, which obviously you wouldn't use until like Cresselia had used up all its usefulness. But he has things that can keep other things alive, like Wish, Vaporeon, Lunar Dance. He also does have 3 Heal Bellers in Vaporeon with Heal Bell. Jolteon, if need be, can run Heal Bell. It's not very good, but it can. And then he has Gramble. He also has a very good, not a great Pyro Grass Core, because if he had Pyro or Magmortar, I would have called it a pretty good, more like a lower tier Fire Water Grass Core, but still pretty good. But like, he has 2 water immunities in that, which is crazy. Like, his water type is immune, his grass type is immune. It's just, I find that crazy. His water type heals on water types, his grass type gets stronger with water types moves, and even Mega Gyarados can be run bulky, or it can be run as a very scary DDer. But yeah, again, the last pick of Typhlosion, when there was Pyroar and Magmortar available, both of which I think are better than Typhlosion, kind of spoiled his draft for me. Not his whole draft, obviously, because I still have him at number 2. But I feel like if he had gotten one of those 2, I think I would have put him at number 1.
Alright, well said. For my number 2, I have Kansas City Rogan Royals. And now this is a team that we were talking about earlier. The coach happened to break his phone in the middle of his draft, and so his first 5 picks were pretty decent, really good, and perhaps on track with being the best draft in the minors league. However, after that it kind of trailed off. But honestly, I don't see it as being that big of a trail off, and the things that he already does have are honestly so good that it almost makes up for the things that are not so good. And plus there's always free agency that is available for getting rid of those things that aren't being as useful and getting some things that are more useful. But yeah, I mean, he only has 11 different types, I believe. I counted, if I counted correctly, he only has 11 different types. Despite that, his team covers his weaknesses very well. He does only have 2 contributors to the Dragonsteel Fairy Core, which is Mega Altaria being Dragon and Fairy, and Heatran being Steel and Fire, but Fire does not count for Dragonsteel Fairy. So he does have a complete core, but it's only, like I said, with 2 contributors, but it's still a very good core, in my opinion. It's a solid draft, and I had here that it was a decently solid draft, but I think somehow it kind of it attained its number 2 spot because like it was kind of in that muck between numbers 9 through 5, and then it kind of like I looked at the team after I had done my initial kind of first glances at it at the drafts, and it was kind of like, oh wow, he has Manaphy, he has Heatran, he has Reuniclus and Amoonguss that can do a regenerator core, and obviously Reuniclus, when it's not using a regenerator core, is still a very big threat on its own. Azelf, I really like Azelf. It's kind of redundant with Reuniclus, although one is a fast psychic type, the other one is a rather slow and bulky one. But, I mean, they both accomplish great feats if they're used correctly. The Gligar Golbat thing is kind of redundant, and he doesn't really need that much hazard removal, so maybe drop one or the other for something better. Electivire, again, not the best electric type, but he still can make use of it. And Ludicolo obviously can be very scary if a Rain Dance is set up. And I'm not the biggest hater of his lower tier picks like Trev seems to be. Gligar and Golbat obviously is a point of contention, but the rest of it, combined with his top half, is honestly so good that as long as his, the way I see it is that if his top half can punch enough holes through the team, then his bottom half there might be something in there that just kind of has this really surprising set that just takes the other person by surprise, because, I mean, obviously as an opposing coach, you kind of have to take everything into consideration, but that's really hard to do on almost every team. It's really hard to take everything into consideration and prepare very well for everything. So while the other team is busy preparing for stuff like Manaphy and Heatran and Amoonguss and Reuniclus and Mega Altaria, then something maybe like Azelf or Electivire or even Golbat and Ludicolo, if it's a rain team, can just sneak in and surprising sets that could sneak in and just take the other person by surprise because they're not prepared for it. And that's kind of why I have Kansas City at number 2, is because the top half of their team is just so scary.
Yeah, I will admit, even though I have them at number 10 myself, I will admit that out of any team in the league, they probably have the biggest upside to them. Depending on how Salem plays with his team, he could easily move up in future power rankings. Like, he could move up above teams that above him that won as well, depending on how he plays. So he does have the biggest upside in the league, personally, in my opinion.
Yes. So finally, at long last, we come to our number 1 rankings, the top ranks, the moments you've been waiting for. Maybe, I don't know. But basically, we have pretty big gaps between these teams. I'd say the biggest gap is your number 1, the Chelseadra. Chelseadra. It's singular, but I'm gonna call them Chelseadras because that sounds better. Sorry, Vic. So you have the Chelseadras at number 1. I have them at number 11. And then I have Tampa Bay at number 1, and you have them at number 8. This was your team that you felt just had a bit of a missing piece. So why don't we get the really big elephant in the room out of the way? Why don't you talk about Vic's team and why you have him at number 1 as opposed to my number 11?
All right. Well, the reason I have Vic number 1 is, to me, he fills out every possibility you could ever want on a team, and he does it very well. He has Fire, Water, Grass, very good at that. I personally think I love his Fire, Water, Grass core a lot more than Richard does, because I personally don't care about him having 2 poison types in there. When it comes to like the psychic and ghost types. Like he has Weavile, where psychic and ghost types go to die with pursuit and knockoff, stab pursuit and knockoff. He has a very solid Fairy Dragon Steel Core, not the best Fairy Dragon Steel Core, but a very solid one. He also has Trick Room, as well as having a very fast Mon. He's not the fastest team, like outside Weavile, he's not terribly fast, but he still has that one Mon that is fast and puts fear into the heart of other teams. Weavile being one of the best Ice type and Dark types in the format, and then he has what, in my opinion, is the best Pokemon in the format. Whenever Mega Metagross is not allowed, because Mega Metagross, whenever it's allowed, is the best. But outside of Mega Metagross, when it's not allowed, Victini for me is the best Pokemon in the format, just because it's so consistent. It'll do good on a bad team. It'll do good on a good team. It'll do a little bit better on the good team, but it will still do good on a bad team. He has a lot of capabilities for Trick Room. He has Victini, which with Free Crate makes a very solid Trick Roomer. He actually has like 4 Trick Roomers on this team, which is very nice. In Victini, Bronzong, Kofag, and Kecleon. Victini isn't the slowest thing, but again, V Crate makes it very, very nice for speed drops and all that. Again, Tentacruel, very reliable spinner. His problem with Psychic types is a problem. He is weak to them, and Psychic types usually do carry coverage. A Psychic type with the right coverage can run through his team, especially like if I don't know if Alakazam is drafted. If it's not, then that's so sad, because Alakazam runs through his team kind of. He does have the capabilities on his Psychic weeks. For example, Tentacruel and Venusaur have knockoff, and even though some Psychic types are bulky, like Reuniclus is pretty decently bulky, but some Psychic types like Alakazam are not bulky at all on the physical side, so they don't really want to take a knockoff, and a lot of them don't want to lose their item as well. Something like Mega Gardevoir could be very threatening to this team, like Shadow Ball, Hyper Voice, and Psyshock alone kind of tear through this team. But I do see potential, because again, it's got that fast Mon, it's got the possibility of Trick Room, which I think if he brings Trick Room, it would be absolutely terrifying. He also has Toxic Spikes, and I believe he has a couple of rockers, Bronzong and Kecleon as his rockers. So not the most reliable rockers. Bronzong's pretty reliable, Kecleon, but they are rockers. And Kecleon is pretty interesting. Things like Shadow Sneak, Sucker Punch, Power Up Punch, Return with Protein can be very threatening. And obviously it gets Trick Room to help with that 40 base speed. But I don't know. It's kind of like the opposite feeling I had with Mono's team, Tampa Bay's team. This team doesn't look like the best team, but I just have this feeling that it is the best team.
You're almost making me want to put them up a little bit higher in my rankings, but they're fixed now, and there's nothing I can do about that. It killed me to put my fellow Brit at such a low rank.
You're not a real Brit.
Shut up. But you make a lot of good points, and he does have a very good team, and this is like the team we were just talking about, which I think it was Kansas City, which was the team you said that you had really low, but yet you saw them with the potential to have a huge upside to them. That's kind of how I feel about Vic's team, is that I have him really low, yet he could very easily, if he wins his matches, rise to the top. So it's the same kind of trade-off with that. So last but not least, I'll talk about my number 1, Tampa Bay. I don't have a whole lot to say except that their draft is just awesome and scary. I'll start with the downsides. The only downsides I really saw was that they have a decent water and fire weaknesses, but then they have a water immunity in Seismitoad and a fire immunity in Chandelure, so it kind of evens out. I mean, they both would resist, well, Seismitoad would take neutral damage if it doesn't have the water absorption move, but Chandelure would resist fire anyways. And I don't know, their team, it's so, I can't describe how much I love their team. even though I hate Clefable, it's so good in the format. I mean, we saw Jolt use it in Season 3 to great effect. I think Jolt has it again on his team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jolt has it again on his team. Jolt also has the Mega Latios, which is what Tampa Bay has, and if I know anything from the whole idea of a Dragonsteel Fairy Core, Mega Latios, Clefable, and Scizor are going to just dismantle teams. I think they're very powerful. Clefable is versatile. It has a large move pool. It can be a wall. It can set up. It can hazard stack. Well, not really hazard stack, but it can set up Stealth Rocks, I think, right? Stealth Rocks, yes.
Yes, Clefable does get Stealth Rocks indeed.
I'm a little bit shaky on this. I don't have the whole move pools in front of me, but I do know some things. That's why I'm a coach. Not a good one, mind you. But it does have access to a bunch of status moves as well, so it can set up Stealth Rocks, it can status things. It can be just an overall annoyance, regardless of how you use it. Scizor, Excelgor, let's see, what else does he have? Electabuzz, that is a very good just mix of offensive pivots. Electabuzz and Scizor obviously forming the main Volt-Turn core, and Excelgor, although its physical attack is not nearly as good as its special attack, can still make use of it. Obviously doesn't need it to just get momentum, but a stab U-turn coming off an Excelgor, regardless of its investment, you know, it's still going to be a decent way to pivot around and gain momentum on the opponent. Seismitoad, Chandelure, Shaman, just a really great, I think, Firewater Grass Core. Seismitoad and Shaman in particular, like you said, Seismitoad is perhaps the best water ground type. Shaman is a really good grass type, and Chandelure, I think it gets a lot of flack for, I don't even know why, because it's weak to rocks, but all fire types are. I don't know why Chandelure gets such a bad rap. I mean, it's part ghost. It functions as a spin blocker, has an amazing special attack, can be specs, can be scarfed. Yes, it is kind of somewhat predictable, and that might be a little bit of a downside because it's, you know, it's going to be either scarfed or specs, or it might have substitute on it and cause some havoc that way. I believe it also gets access to Infiltrator, so it can break through substitutes. Well, it can go right through substitutes without even, you know, having to worry about them, which is so invaluable in this format. Hitmontop is a great spinner. It gets access to Intimidate, which, you know, obviously increases its physical bulk by a little bit by, you know, decreasing the attack of the opponent. Nidoqueen, just an amazing special attacker, very hard hitter. It has the bulk to kind of, you know, take a hit and then dish it back out. And then you were kind of upset about Articuno. Articuno is one of my favorite Pokemon, just overall. Not really to use.
So
but
biased is what I'm hearing right now.
It is biased, okay? I admit that Articuno, even in the lower tiers, may or may not be the best Pokemon due to its 4x rock weakness and the prevalence of Stealth Rocks. I just love Articuno. And if he can keep rocks off the field with Hitmontop, and obviously Mega Latios gets Defog, Scizor gets Defog, so he does have options for hazard removal. Articuno itself is a defogger, and it has access to Roost, so it can heal itself up if it, you know, gets the opportunity. It might not get a whole lot of opportunities to do so, but it can. And it's really not the worst thing that he could have picked. It's not the greatest, and there are a lot of things that outclass it and, you know, are better just, you know, in the format, but a well-used Articuno can be quite disastrous for the other team, I think. Clearly a poorly used one won't be having much success, but then again, you could say that with just about every Pokemon except for Victini, which is apparently good on any team, but yeah, just overall, I love his team. It has a lot of synergy to me. It seems to go really well together, and I just can't wait to see how he uses them. That's my top one. Trev, would you like to say any last words before we end this video? Either on this team or just overall?
I would just like to say that Richard is a biased arachnophobia fuck.
Yeah, that's exactly what I am. Alright,
I'm just kidding. I love Richard, and Richard loves me, and we both like to talk, so that's why these videos combined are going to be like an hour and a half.
Probably close to 2 hours.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, we hope you guys enjoyed, though. If you stuck around for this long and survived our rambling, thank you so much for watching. Mostly, this will probably be our league mates watching, so good. You guys can suffer through it. We don't care about you guys. Just kidding. We love you. Anyways, any closing words, Trev, before we end this marathon of talking?
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.